My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace.
Good evening, Planet Earth, and welcome to the Good News program. My name is Bill Robinson, and I'm your host for this evening's program. And I have a very special guest who took time out of an unbelievably busy schedule to come down here and share what Jesus is doing in her life. Esther Summersett. I got it right. Give me 5. All right.
Hi, Bill.
Esther's from Lynn, and she has what I would call a very interesting, dynamite story to tell. Esther, I got to take a few minutes here and explain to our audience out there in television land just what a testimony is. A testimony is your story and how Jesus has affected your life, changed it, rearranged it, and He takes a mess and turns it into a message. He takes brokenness and turns it into breakthroughs, and disasters to decisions. So that's part of what it is. But when we do this, it's because we've had an experience and an encounter with Jesus Christ. He has changed our lives. He's changed Esther's. He's changed mine. He's changed the people that are working here on the set tonight, and He can change yours. See, we call it the Good News program because good news is a window into the gospel. And the good news is this: Jesus loves you just the way you are out there.
That's right.
That's all. Come to Him, and He just definitely cleans up messes after messes. And the mess becomes a message for the next guy coming down the road. So it reveals the nature of God and how He operates. And He's different in all of us. We all have our own personalities and little quirks and stuff. And He's made us that way. It's like I tell people, and they look at you and say, yeah, we're not the same. If you haven't figured that one out, there's 7.2 billion people on planet Earth. Nobody's the same. We had 9 feet of snow last year. No two snowflakes are geometrically alike. So it reveals His nature and how He does things. And He doesn't think the way we do. He thinks totally different. And it sets up inside a person when they hear the story, it sets up the goodness of God, that what they wanted manifested in their life. It sets up that longing for something. And what the word testimony actually means in the Hebrew is, I want to do it again. So God wants to do it again. So when you hear something out here tonight, the testimony has the power to create what was declared. So what Esther is going to tell you, it has the power to declare things in your life.
That's
now
right.
you say, well, man, I can't really, identify with that. But at the end, you're going to say, oh, wow, really? Yeah, God does all that all the time. And He's still doing it. We were talking on the way over, all the way from the bottom of Argentina to northern places in China and Russia, all those places, Mongolia. He's still doing it all over the place. And we're hearing it. And we're living in, Esther, the most exciting time on planet Earth. He's restoring and redeeming lives. It's amazing. So basically, that's what we're doing tonight. It's your story. It's the testimony of Jesus. You can look it up in the Manufacturer's Handbook. I have one right here. It's in Revelations 19:10. He said Jesus is the spirit of prophecy released on here, on this program tonight. So you know what? Sometimes I give them a chance. Go get the rest of the family. Come in and watch this. You need to hear the story. Testimonies are dynamite. That's, that's what people say. Wow. Anyways, okay. So you're from Lynn.
Right.
And originally the family's from?
Well, my family's originally from New York. We moved to Lynn when I was about 12 years old.
Okay. So I asked you, you had 2 years in Washington Heights, and if you knew Manny Ramirez, and she said she didn't know him.
Not true.
Well, you're 2 years old, what can I say, So you're in Lynn, Mass. with your family.
Right.
And you were in a church.
Correct. I was raised Pentecostal pretty much. I was raised Christian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And your stepfather was a pastor?
Correct. He was a prime minister, pretty much equal to a pastor. He was just oversaw a certain amount of churches in the area.
Now, did you have a big family or a small family?
I did. I have 4 brothers and myself
Okay.
in the immediate family.
So you're the princess.
Correct. I like to think so.
Good. So, but you know what? The start that you got was really convoluted. You want to tell us about that?
So, pretty much I
As a little child.
as a child, my first memory was at 4 years old. Mind you, you mentioned my stepfather, my family. Mind you, at 4 years old, I don't really know anything out of the ordinary. My mother was giving birth to my brother that follows me, which is Caesar. And my first memory of 4 years old is being picked out of a bunk bed and being laid in my mother's bed while she was in the hospital, which was pretty much my stepfather picking me up and putting me there.
And abused.
Correct. I was molested at that age, not yet, you know.
And this went on for years?
Correct.
And you thought it was normal?
Correct,
You
of course.
You never experienced
Well, I
anything?
mean, if that's all you know, then that's what you think that every child is happening to, you know? When I
Yeah.
looked at my cousin and I looked at the way she interacted with her father, there was times I even wanted to ask but was too scared. Oh, is this happening to you?
Yeah.
You know, it just became normality. That's just the life you live.
Yeah. So, I think you told me you were 11 or 12, you had to do something for Sunday school?
Correct. So through that, my childhood, I was being sexually abused and pretty much physically abused as well. So that came hand in hand. When I was about 11 years old, mind you, I was invited to preach in the children's service. And I chose to preach, and the one thing that I had learned was the 10 Commandments. So at that time, that's when I realized, oh my God, you know, when I got to thou shalt not fornicate, thou shalt not commit adultery, at that point I wanted to know what I was preaching about, so I did some research. And at this time I figured out, okay, wait a minute, if this is this, then this is what's happening right here.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I articulated it. So yeah, at that point I realized, oh my God, what's going on? It's not right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was illegal. I just realized it wasn't right, morally correct,
Yeah.
you know? And that's pretty much where it came from there. Nothing really ever changed. Nothing happened. I went towards my stepfather like, hey, you know, I was broken because, see, the thing is that all my life, all I knew was God, and that's all I had. Mm-hmm. You know, in the midst of all that, that's all you really come close to, because that's all you really feel that you have, you know?
Right, yeah.
Everything else deceives you, everything else betrays you, disappoints you, you know? So I didn't want to go to hell. Mm-hmm. That was my first initial response. Oh my God, I'm gonna go to hell. So I went towards my stepfather and said, hey, this is going on, and, you know, and he pretty much said, oh, at that point there was some conscience in him. He's like, it won't happen again. But of course,
Yeah.
it continued.
So you went to the church?
No. I was too scared to do anything. It was my father. At that point, I still thought it was my real father. I didn't do anything. At one point, there was a prime minister, another preacher. They came from Florida. And I remember him. And when he came down here, you know, a lot of churches always people offer out their homes for the ministers to stay. Yeah. So my family actually offered the home for him to stay in. I remember that sometime middle of the night morning, this man is staying in our house and he starts to scream. And I'm saying, I had never heard somebody tremble. The weeping, it was trembling. So he said, somebody's touching my temple. He started to scream over and over, somebody's touching my temple. Now, as a child, this is the first encounter that I actually remember with God, because I recognized him right that moment. I got up from the bed initially, ran to the corner of the door, kneeled and said, oh my God, you're here, you came for me. Because in my mind, everything's going to be okay. Like you got here. So he starts speaking in tongue, but he's switching back and forth, like tongues, and then somebody's touching my temple. So my family wakes, my mother and my father, whom I thought was my father, step out of the room, and they're like, what's going on, you know? So he starts speaking to my stepfather and telling him that I know what you have been doing.
He had a word of knowledge as well.
Correct. He was letting him know.
Yeah.
At that point, he denied it. You know, they threw him out of the house. The minister did not stop there. He took it to the church.
Oh, okay.
He was the one that took it to the church and said, God, reveal this to me.
Yeah.
Somebody do something, you know?
Right.
The church made this big meeting. I remember sitting in a conference table, my mother and my stepfather holding hands, the pastor, everything. I was alone on my side of the table. They're all there. And pretty much there was no decision made. I was sent home that night to get pretty much a whooping. And to be quite frank, you know, I saw my world go darker than it was already, you know, because now, you know, now they're asking me, is it true? And I'm thinking, well, God, you came from me, and I could say yes, right?
Yeah.
The truth is that I stayed quiet, and then I started to nod, but I didn't see nobody come for me.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to go home.
Yeah.
It continued for years, you know, after that. And so there was actually a few times where he attempted. As I got older, I would ask him, what about mommy? That's all I cared about, really, you know, my mom's safety. And he said, well, I don't know, you know, when you get older, we'll run away. I knew I was getting older. It's about that time, you know. I got to do something. Now I'm just scared.
Yeah.
But I see him getting more violent as time goes on with my mother, with, you know, so I'm just like, if I don't do something, it's going to break. But my mom's going to hate me if I separate him from her. He's all she's got. So I remember that it was a night, there was a big fight in the house. He tried to pretty much off us all in the car. And that's when I was like, well, he's going to do it anyways. He's going to do something, so I got to stop. So one of the sisters from the church at that time, from that same church, asked me again, why is God continuing to reveal things to people, but nobody's doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
But then I realized, what if the power was in my hands?
Yeah.
You know, I'm still a child, mind, or I'm scared. And to be quite frank, and still almost at 40, I live scared, you know? But she drove me to the police station and left me there. I walked in and I told them that this had been happening, but to just remove me and leave him with my mother. He walked into the police station. He saw me. At that time, the police station in Linton was all glass. He saw me through that. And he was bold enough. I am talking about, like, who walks in knowing?
Yeah.
You know?
Big man. Yeah.
Yeah, but this man was 6 foot something, you know? To me, it was my demon. It was the monster underneath my bed, you know?
Yeah.
So he walked in, and they told him to be in court at 9. They told him what I had, what the charges were, and that was it. It went into the system.
So you went to foster home.
Correct.
And he took off.
Correct.
Wow. So now you're in the foster home.
Now my mother does not have me nor him.
Wow. So now you're in school and you're angry, you're emotional.
Well, I don't know it yet, but through foster home, I'm also being sexually abused through the biological kids of the foster parents.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's just normal for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. There's no that's what I'm here for. You know.
Wow.
But yeah, I become angrier. I'm very angry at my mother because all I wanted you to do was love me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm angry. You know, I'm angry at everybody.
Yeah.
Because you weren't there for me.
Right. So school becomes like a battleground.
Of course, I was
You're
teased.
rebellious, angry and rebellious.
Yeah, at first I was teased.
Yeah.
You know, Bill, going back to, like, even when I was in the household, I spoke to God all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I I think I mentioned this to you before. There was a moment in my life where it would snow. It was like below 7 degrees, and I intentionally went into the roof of my room and asked God that if he was there to not let me wake up, because I sat in the roof overnight to make sure that I would die. Because I'm hearing these stories of frostbite.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm lucky enough. No, I was not lucky enough. I kept waking up.
Yeah.
But, you know, at least in my mind, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know. But even through schools, you know, once I hit schools, you know, nothing was ever the same, you know.
So you left English High?
Well, yes, I was expelled, actually.
Okay, so then you started with the weed and...
Right, while I was in English, I had already started skipping class, smoking weed. At this time, I'm giving back to my mom from the system.
Yeah.
I started to smoke the weed and smoke the cigarettes, you know, and it's funny because I didn't really like it, but I wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to be the cool kid because I was tired of not being the cool one, you know?
Okay.
So, you know, it went all down here from there. You know, I literally kind of, I was very disrespectful to my mother.
Yeah.
I told her that I didn't want to be there. I packed my stuff and told her that I would never come back. And I made sure of that. No matter how bad things got out there, I didn't go back because it was a prideful thing. It was a pride, you know?
So now, so now you got some relationships going with guys and stuff?
Oh, yes. Plenty of those.
Plenty of them, yeah.
But, yeah.
So what happens, you know, like you're out of school, you're on your own, you have relationships, and babies start?
Babies start popping. 17 years old, I remember that even through that, it's funny because when I wanted something, I knew to go to God, you know? A 17-year-old old, I had a diary, which I kept.
Yeah.
And I would write to God, you know? At 17, I asked him for a daughter. A replica of me, but I wanted her to be better than I was.
Uh-huh.
And that's specifically how I said it.
I saw her picture. She's beautiful. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
she definitely was better than I. But, you know, so I asked specifically for her, and I said that she would be his. And, of course, it's funny because it's always his.
Yeah.
You know, but I knew to, you know, pretty much surrender her to him and say, oh, this is for you. This is yours, you know. I remember that in asking for my daughter, I didn't ask for someone that I can love. I asked for someone that could love me unconditionally. That was my brokenness.
Right.
You know, all I wanted to do was be loved.
Right.
You know, and along came this amazing girl, my princess number one.
Yeah.
By 19, I had 2 kids, which was Isaiah. My first daughter was Jezreel, which I mimicked from a city in Israel, which is Hesidet.
Okay.
And then Isaiah came along. My second child, by 19, like I said, I had 2 kids. Then I had their same fathers. Then I had my third, Paul. And that was from a quick marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was 20, I want to say 26, but I don't know. So my daughter's now 12. Here came princess number 2 from a different relationship. In between that, there was already like some use, some drug use. There was like, you try it for a little bit, broken relationship, then I'd run to it, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to numb.
Were you using drugs at this time?
Off and on.
Off and on.
Yeah. When I really remember when I seriously went in was after Jilene, my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Something happened when her father cheated on me.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was the disappointment that I could not handle. Because every time somebody did something to me, it reminded me of what had been done through my whole life. So I needed to numb, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So quickly, cocaine came in.
Yep.
And then that got really boring. My nose was really burning. And so I was introduced to crack cocaine.
Crack cocaine.
Correct.
The heroin is down the road?
No.
No
heroin. Not that I was not wanting to try it.
Yeah.
But I had a friend that did heroin that also smoked crack with me that told me never to try that. I remember that he came to my house one day crying, saying that he was sick. I didn't know that he used heroin at that time. So he actually said, I would never let you try this. But I questioned it, you know?
Yeah. And you're still in Lynn at this time?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. At this time, I remember my first, one of my first, so I always believed in spirits, in the spiritual world. But my first encounter was, some would say that I was strung out.
Yeah.
You know, and having illusions, but I remember that I had sniffed so much I had dosed out. And my daughter was 6 months old laying next to me. So on one side, and maybe on that side as well, I had a plate of cocaine.
Yeah.
And my daughter's there too, in the bed. Something, I dozed up, I'm sitting kind of up, I dozed off and something squeezed my neck enough to wake me up. So he says to me in a man's voice, if you do it again, I'll be back. That's all he says to me, mind you. It was dark in the room was dark, the TV was on, my daughter's laying there, and I cannot see his face, I just see it all black. That's all he says, and squeezes again, and I quickly got up as soon as I can wake up and looked for, because it was so real, I felt him, I heard him, you know. But it's funny, he never said, do what again? Yet my spirit knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, he was talking about the drugs.
Yeah.
And through time, you know, I just escalated.
Yeah.
The way what I felt, my surroundings, my environment. Some would say different elements of different things, you know?
Yep.
So that escalated.
Wow. So...
At that time, I said, I got so scared.
Yeah.
Because, Bill, to me, this is a man. In my mind, it doesn't cross that it's not human.
Oh, I see, okay.
So now I think my house just got broken into. I call the police and everything, Bill. Mind you, the experiences continued, but the second time the more it went on, the more of them expanding. So I saw the following time, I saw 5.
Whoa.
Literally. So I'm thinking I'm getting broken into. Something's happening, you know? Although I believed in it, you know. It's different when it's happening, you know? Like, it's not that. That's not what it is, you know? So I literally began to say, I need to leave. I told my brother, death chases me. Yet I called the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I moved out of where I was, trying to run out of that situation.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, see, the whole time, I was in like a projects type of thing, but I got Section 8. That doesn't happen too often because if you have already sometimes some type of subsidy, you don't get granted another one with people with so many needs, right? But now I have movable Section 8. So I got up, moved, and that's how I got to Florida.
So you went to Florida. Your mother's in Florida.
Correct. So something happens where supposedly my mother gets sick, and I take that opportunity to really just run. Because at this point, I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get away. Something's chasing me. I don't know what it is, but something's calling me there. Then it changes.
Something's calling you, and that's amazing.
So I said, I don't know what it is, but I have to go. So I leave my 2 oldest kids here with family, and I take my youngest, my Pablo. My daughter stays with her father, and I move in with a guy in Florida that I had literally just met when I went to visit my mother prior to and decided to go. But the guy was very like, hey, you could move in, and you know, it was like, oh wow, that was my guardian angel. So I moved.
Yeah.
Right into his home with my son, not really knowing anything of each other. So I didn't tell him that I was an addict.
Yeah.
Because I wanted a new life, clean slate. You don't know anything about me. I don't know anything about you, granted, but I didn't care. And life continued. It took very little time for everything to open, the can to open, you know?
Yeah.
Because, mind you, he was an addict too.
Oh boy, yeah.
So I had walked right into.
But, you know, through this whole thing, you know, God's still with you. He's got a plan. He's got his hand
Of
on your
course he
shoulder.
is.
And he's not taken back by anything that you got involved with.
None of it.
None. And, you know, from, you know, having a crack house and being involved with supporting the habit and everything. You know, this is what, you know, sometimes Esther, you know, I got the scripture this afternoon. It's Esther 4:14. For a season and a time, this is what you're appointed for.
Right.
Esther was one sharp lady. She knew how to get the king's attention.
Right.
She, you know, she was sharp. So you're involved supporting your habit, and you get involved in some stuff that, you know, it's really,
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is.
Right.
But he redeems things.
He does.
And the point that I want to make is, if people would just remember that he is called the Redeemer.
Correct.
You know, it's not like nice. I mean, he gets into some messy situations and turns them around. And there's one in the Bible that I really liked. It was a story about Rahab, and she was a shrine prostitute, and it was acceptable in those days. Actually, it was a place. It was an honorable thing because they had a really whacked out culture. So, and God saying, "You're going to tells Josh, you're going to destroy the whole thing." So he sends a couple of spies out, and for some reason, Rahab knew this, and they ended up at her. You know, maybe it was a cat house or something. I don't know. Her father and brother probably pimps, but it was okay in those days. So she knows that these guys are spies. She said, "Your people are going to destroy this place. Save us." So we'll make a deal with you. God made made a deal, and they said, if you don't expose us, hide us, then when we come through, you put a red ribbon in your door, and you'll be okay.
Right.
So she did that, and she turned her life around. And so when people say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's a fairy story," that's baloney. It isn't a fairy story, because Rahab was the great, 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 great grandmother of Jesus. And when you want to go down his lineage, you can look at this. Some ladies in there that he transformed and reformed, like all of us. You know, we all come
Right.
from stuff, and you're about to be transformed and reformed.
That's correct.
You know, so you know, Rahab went to the rehab, that's, and that rehab is Jesus Christ.
Right.
So it brings us to the point in the program where I offer the people in the privacy of their own home to get rehabbed, just like you and I did.
Right.
And what are you talking about, Bill? I'm talking about Jesus Christ coming into your life and saying, and taking an honest look at your life on planet Earth, because it's quick, it's passing. And so, you know, you're not going to live here for 10 zillion years. You're going to live, but you got a choice to make where you're going to spend it, whether it's here or someplace else. And I want it to be in heaven.
Right.
You know what? But it's not like I got to do something. I want to do it. I've fallen in love, just like you have with the King. You know.
Correct.
So we give him an opportunity to say, you know what, my life is a little screwed up, and I would like that peace that surpasses all understanding. All you got to do is wrap your own words around it, ask Jesus into your life, say, listen, I'm sorry. He took care of you right on that cross that's on the screen, and you become a new creation. Tell him you're sorry, ask him in, and to take over and run the show from now on. And guess what? He will.
Right.
And there's, you know, information on your screen that you can get hooked up with people and that of like-minded, because you're not going to be alone rangers. They get picked off.
Right.
You know, so that's simple. That's the invitation that we have. Esther's going to come back, and we're going to tell you some more good things that are happening in her life and what she's doing now, because she is a mother in Zion and a grandmother of grandmothers, and she has got more kids that she's helping out.
Jesus.
God, I'm so excited, Esther. Really. Thank you,
you.
Jesus. And out there in television land, you have a great week.